closet door. I'm here in my studio, aka Board Game Closet. I love this song. I'm worried we use it too much, but it's still a good song. Anyways, before diving into today's nugget of civics, I wanted to thank those of you who have donated to keep this bird in the air. We simply can't make the show without that tried and true public radio standby, listener donations. If you listen to the show and can support it, just go to civics101podcast.org and click donate, or just click the link in our show notes to give a gift in any amount. $5 a month as a sustaining member, it gets you a swanky new Civics 101 face mask. But whatever amount you can give, please know we are going to keep asking people smarter than us to answer your questions about how our country works. Thank you. Thank you. All right, here's the show.
Civics 101 is supported in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
We heard it a lot this year. Voter fraud. Widespread, rampant, election-ruining voter fraud. Yet at the same time, election officials say they can't find the evidence of significant fraud. So what is the truth about voter fraud? This is Civics 101. I'm Hannah McCarthy.
I'm Nick Capodice.
And today we're finding out what fraud actually is, how often it happens, and what voter fraud allegations tell us about elections.
Voter fraud does occasionally happen.
This is Justin Levitt, law professor at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. He says, yes, there are various types of voter fraud, and they do happen, very rarely.
The important thing to know is that real voter fraud is based on breaking the law in some way.
So this would be like trying to vote more than once.
Yes, and impersonating an eligible voter, voting in more than one state, or attempting to. Laws vary from state to state, but in many, it is a felony to, for example, vote more than once. Sometimes this is nefarious, or sometimes it's a relative voting for their deceased loved one to carry out their last wishes. Either way, though, it is illegal, but very, very rare.
The way to distinguish these real incidents from hot takes that turn out to be fiction is to find real facts that show real wrongdoing against real law. And unfortunately, all too often, what we hear are claims of voter fraud that are based in, I don't like people who don't think like I do voting.
In other words, unsubstantiated voter fraud claims could just be frustration that someone else's candidate won?
Or confusion.
That seems fishy to me, but I don't really understand how the rules of the elections work. And it's real easy to jump really quickly in a conspiratorial mindset from this seems strange, but I don't understand, to that must be fraud.
Justin gave this example of someone suspecting that it's voter fraud for someone to vote in a state in which they do not live, when actually that's just a misunderstanding of legal absentee voting.
Mike Pence votes in Indiana but doesn't live there. Many, 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 many members of the military live in a place that is not their voting residence and vote in a place where they are not currently living. That's not fraud.
So actual fraud, while it exists, is exceedingly rare. Still, legislators pass laws like voter ID laws that tighten election security in order to prevent widespread fraud from happening. But those laws are really controversial.
Every state has some means to make sure that you are who you say you are when you go to vote. The question isn't, should we have a way to prove that you are who you say you are? The question is, what kind of things should we permit in order to make sure that the election system is reasonably secure, while also making sure that we are not unreasonably locking out eligible voters?
Justin says it's important to recognize that instances of voter fraud with no evidence of voter fraud gives you insight into how voters are feeling. It has to do with intense emotion rather than clear fact.
They're expressions of frustration. They're expressions of anguish. They are communications about disengagement with the system that we have. They're often not really about whether the law was broken in a particular way in a particular jurisdiction. But if we can recognize that a large part of that conversation is expressing some other deeper disengagement, that may help point a way toward embracing all of the voters who participate in the process.
We have far from solved the problem of voter fraud, real or imagined, but here's to hoping we've shed a little light on a murky idea. If you have any questions about the way things are working or not in this country, we will try to find the answers, even if they are dissatisfying. Just click the button at the top of our homepage at civics101podcast.org.
From PRX.